Thank you so much for watching the film, and thank you for sticking around for the Filmmaker Q&A. I'm Pahul Bains. I'm one of the programmers of this year's festival, and I'm so glad to be speaking with Alex Sanga, producer, and Vinay Giridhar, director of Emergence, Out of the Shadows. Thank you both for taking the time out to chat today.
Thank you so much. And I'm also one of the cast.
Exactly, we'll get to that. um, I actually wanted to start with you, Alex, because what ties all of the stories together in this film is Share Vancouver, which is an organization that you founded, which provides counseling and support for LGBTQ South Asians in Metro Vancouver. So I was just wondering, how did the idea for the documentary come to you, and what made you think that these people, yourself included, would be compelling subjects for this film?
hmm to be honest, I've known Caden for about 5 years now, and I think at about the 2, 3 year mark, we were having dinner. It was a friend's birthday, and I said, you know what? This is, as an organization, we have to create awareness, education, outreach. We have to do something that's going to have social impact. We have to do social advocacy, social activism, social work, and I had made a short film about a transgender woman of color who was murdered, who was my friend. And that did very well in film festivals around the world, actually. And I thought, well, why don't we try to make a feature film? And why don't we focus on Caden?
Mhm.
And then when I recruited, Vinay was there at that dinner. When I talked to Vinay, he goes, well, why don't we flesh out the story? And it would be more interesting. And I said, okay, well, then we have to make sure we have a balanced cast. We need to make sure we have a woman, a gay woman in the film, and we need to make sure we have, maybe someone older. And it wasn't necessarily myself at that time. And I said we have Caden's story, and then you know, and then I was thinking about it carefully, and I said, you know what? There's no point just making a brown coming out story because that will only really provide hope and support for other gay and lesbian kids, which is important. But
Mhm.
I said the people that we really need to educate are the parents and broader society. It's the parents and broader society that have the power to love, to accept, or to reject and disown their children.
Mhm.
They're the ones who really need the education. So when we were looking at that, that really reduced our short list of potential cast members. So not many parents were willing to be in the documentary. My mom was willing to be in it, and by default, I ended up in it. So it's really thanks to my mom that I was in the film, because she was willing to share her story, and I think she does a wonderful job in the story. And then I approached Jag, who's a long-term member of Share Vancouver, and I just asked her very nicely. I said it would be wonderful if your parents can be in the film. We really need a male figure. We need your mom. We need your brother. Can we make it happen? And it took her about 2 months, but she made it happen.
Wow.
And then we had all the pieces of the puzzle, and they stuck with us for 2 years, including 1 year trying to film in the middle of a pandemic. And this is a labor of love. It's Vinay's first feature film. I knew as long as I can keep Vinay happy, the film will be good because he is just so talented as an artist, and he really cares about the project, and he really wanted to do a good job and share the stories, the
Mhm.
lived experiences, the authenticity, the reality of the experience, and he actually believed in the project and its mission. It wasn't just a job for him; a it was also a passion project for him as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Vinay. What drew you to the story, and what made you think that you wanted to take this on as your first feature?
Actually, when we started, we wanted to do a shorter film. And then when we started discussing how we can make this film a worthwhile project and then have the most impact, and then we included the parents and everything, and then it was impossible to be a shorter feature. It needs to be a feature film. So, and then, all the people that we interviewed in the film are very close to my heart. I deeply care about all of them. And then it was a truly an honor for me to tell their stories, and to be there for them, to listen to them what they have to say and just be there. So yeah, I'm really happy how it turned out.
Yeah, and everyone shares very intimate and oftentimes painful memories and stories. So, how did you go about creating a safe space for people where they felt comfortable sharing these very
Mhm.
vulnerable stories with you?
So
Yes. Mm. Yeah.
yeah, so do you want to answer that, Vinay? I have something I can say about that. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, why don't you
So
start and then? Okay.
what I was thinking, what I wondered, I'm a social worker, Pahul. That's my profession. I'm a social worker by profession, and we had different people come in at different times during the studio interviews, and then we filmed them at different times during the B-roll and secondary visuals. So it wasn't like they were on the spot or people were listening to them or watching them. Only the people that needed to be there were there. And also because the filming was very sensitive and emotional and traumatic at times, and triggering and therapeutic for some people and brought closure for some people, we made counseling available. We were debriefing after, people in the lounge and the waiting room were debriefing and talking, and we were we were also all friends, really.
Mhm.
So we provided each other with kind of peer support throughout the whole project, and we had that camar- camaraderie. I don't know how you say that word. We had that connection. We had that bond and we had a friendship, and I think that's what made the film possible.
Mhm.
And we wanted to. We had a purpose. We had a mission. We had a clear set agenda to help people in our community, to educate people, and that's what we did.
Yeah. I'd like to go back to, the idea that you mentioned earlier of wanting that parental voice, that parental
Mhm.
input, because I think that really adds such a rich layer to the film, because those aren't voices that we tend to hear that often in the conversation. And I'm just wondering, was it part of it that led you to that decision? Was it you also thinking back to when you were a young queer kid, how much of an impact it would have had on you had you been able to see parents talking in such a supportive and loving way to their queer children? Like, is
Mhm.
that sort of what you want to provide to a new generation of queer South Asians through this film?
You know what? I'll tell you something. When I was young, and I was going, even when I was 16, 17, and I was graduating from high school, there was no internet, there was no cell phones, there was no gay straight alliances,
Mhm.
there was no grinder, there was no place for me as a gay person to meet another person. I did not know what was happening to me. I thought I was sick. I thought I had a mental illness. I thought there was something wrong with me for being a gay kid. I had no gay friends. I had no gay role models. Not in my wildest dreams could I ever think there would be another gay brown person. And I made this film because I want other people like myself to know you're not alone. You're not alone. There are people like you. This film potentially could go around the world. It'll be available as a resource. They can watch it online and they can say, yes, there are gay people. There's Jag, there's Caden, there's Amar, and their families love them and embrace them. You don't have to reject them.
Mhm.
You can love them. Love is love. They're part of God's children too. So this is the message, and this is what we were hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that you wanted different perspectives in terms of an older person, and you wanted a lesbian perspective as well. But I think it's also each of the parents brings such a different perspective. Your mother has such a long history with you that she talks about in the film, and then you have Jag's parents, who kind of off the right out of the gate tried to be really supportive as quickly as they could, kind of rally themselves and show their kids that they were there for them. And then you have Caden's story, which is kind of the complete opposite. So I also really appreciated that there is no one parental response. Someone might take a long time to get there. Some parents might not get there at all, and I appreciated seeing all of those different layers as well.
Mhm.
That's something you thought about too in the film.
Vinay, you can answer that.
Yes, yes, of course. It was important for us to show that like it is possible to have a happy life in the end. And then one thing Alex mentioned in the movie, I don't know if you remember when he said about the rejection from his own dad, that it took Alex like a good 2 decades, 3 decades to come into terms with himself. But then how can he expect his own father to, who has lived on this earth for at least 50 years, to change his perspective and then like and then open his mind to a totally different concept. So everything takes time, and then and everybody has their own pace on developing their ideas and like at the perceptions on other people's lives. So yeah, I think it was important to show that.
Right. And just
And,
so I understand how you got involved in the film, Vinay, like Alex mentioned a dinner that you guys were at together, but how do you know each other? How did your paths cross?
Yeah, so I've been volunteering and working with Share Vancouver for a long, long time now, almost 10 years actually. I'm a graphic designer and I'm a video editor. I work for a South Asian magazine here in Surrey. So I'm South Indian, I'm Hindu, but most of the people here who live in the Surrey area, the Metro Vancouver, are Sikh and they're Punjabi. So I got to know their culture, and then I was learning about their religion and how they live their lives, their philosophy. And I'm really close to Alex's mom as well, so we always talk. I can talk to her for hours and hours. It's just she's an amazing woman. uh, and then he recruited me, like he asked me, like I was truly honored because he needs to really trust me with the story. And then talking to Jag, and I really care about Jag and I like her parents, and like, so I didn't want to let them down. I want to do the best job I can with this film, and because they are trusting me with their life story, and then it is a huge responsibility to show it in a way that it's respectful and then it has the impact they're hoping to have. And then everybody, they all came from a perspective of doing some sort of seva, um, and then serving their community and bringing that awareness. This is the reason why they made this film, and I respect that. um, yeah, they Jag, I think she mentioned, if you can, if I through this, through telling of the story, if you can save like one person's life, I'll be, my life will be worthwhile, my story will be worthwhile. So I thought, I took it very seriously.
Right. And Alex, you mentioned that there were a lot of challenges in getting, especially people from your parents' generation, to talk on camera. So how did you approach that? How were you able to, I guess, convince people that you were going to portray their story in as authentic a way as possible, and trust that you were going to tell their stories properly? Because I know, in Canada, the queer community has had equal rights for a long time, but in the South Asian community, it's still talking about gender, sexual identity is such a taboo topic. So I can understand how challenging it would have been to even broach those conversations, let alone broach them on camera. So I'm just
mhm.
wondering how you went about that.
So I was a little bit strategic and a little bit clever, to be honest. So what happened was, Share Vancouver has been around since 2008, and it's a well-known nonprofit and now a registered charity in Metro Vancouver. So everyone, either indirectly through the media or directly through knowing me, is aware of the work I do as a social worker within the community, as a social activist, and I had no problem recruiting my mother because she felt she realized how important it was for me. However, in order to complete the story, we really needed Jag and her entire family. Not just her parents. We needed her brother, we needed her children, we needed her partner, we needed everyone. So I just talked to Jag and I said, Jag, listen, this is an opportunity for us to do something that can really help people make a difference in this world and leave a legacy for those for generations and generations to come. I said, there really is not a lot of films, especially about gay and lesbian Punjabi Sikh families. There
Yeah.
is not a lot of information and resources for our community. I can't think of any major feature film like this. You know, if there is some, there's a very small body of work.
Right.
And I said, if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen in Metro Vancouver, where there's a huge diaspora community, and it's going to happen from our group because we're the only one in Canada, or one of very few in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had Jag directly talk to her parents, and to be honest, her father wanted to pull out at the last minute. But they all convinced everyone, they all rallied around, and they did their job. But it was not easy. It was not easy. Pahul, it was not easy. They really have to trust you, and they really have to uh, believe in the project. But you know, one thing that was going for us as Sikh people was when you say seva for the community. That is a concept in Sikhism that everyone believes in and that wants to practice in their life.
Yeah.
And so when I said that this is a seva to not only gay and lesbian kids, but also to the parents of gay and lesbian kids, it's a seva, it can save lives to, everyone. It can help the community at large. If more
Right.
people feel comfortable about who they are and come out of the closet and live a happy life, then that would help everyone.
Mm-hmm.
They won't be forced into fake marriages, living double lives, ruining the fulfilling life for the woman. They can learn to love who they want to love. And once I sort of packaged it in a sort of that sort of way, in a helping social service seva type of a project, and then it happened. And actually, the production company for this film is Share Vancouver, my registered charity, and the Share Vancouver has the copyright and ownership of the film, and everything, any revenue or anything generated from the film goes back into helping people in our community.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be there long after I'm gone.
Right. Well, my final question for both of you is, as I mentioned earlier, people are sharing very traumatic and painful stories, but the film ends on a very hopeful note. There's a lot of joy. There's a sense of community. There's a sense of family. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit about ending it on that note.
It was really important to have a hopeful message in the end, because when we see Caden's story and Jack's message was to find people who are like you and or find support on your own terms. And then this is what we were trying to do. We were trying to create a community around which everybody can be together and have a safe space where they can be themselves and to celebrate their culture and their, so it was really important for us because through finding family, finding their chosen family, Caden has somewhere to go. Like he finds a spot where he can be himself, even though there was a rejection from his own family. You find your heart relatives. I really like that word that I learned yesterday, heart relatives. So it's just like you have blood relatives and you have heart relatives. You choose your family that way. And then you're happy that way. And then you can we can be whoever you want to be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for speaking with me and for this wonderful film. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
Pahal.
us, and we can't wait to see all the rest of the films at Real World.